The summer months in the UK are some of the best we have during the year, obviously because of the good weather that we have. But as an international student, this is when the university acceptance letters start rolling in. Now, if you have got accepted into a university, well, congratulations, you've crossed the first step of becoming a student in the UK. However, don't forget that the challenge just begins here. The second biggest challenge you are going to face is trying to find an appropriate student accommodation which fits your budget needs. And if this is something you are seriously considering while pursuing your academics in the UK, then this video is for you. So in today's video, we will be discussing why students find it hard to find accommodation in the UK, what are some of the types of accommodation available to you and how you need to make a choice about it, and some of the hacks to save money in terms of being a student in the UK. But before we move ahead, my name is Nikita and I make videos about living in the UK, getting your HCPC registration, finding work as a healthcare professional, and making those dreams come true. And if you are interested in any of this, do not forget to follow me on Instagram. My handle is Physiotherapy in UK, and like, share and subscribe my channel. So what's really happening in terms of student accommodation in the UK? So as of last year, because there was a backlog during COVID and obviously because the PSW visa was open, a lot of students flocked to the UK as international students. Now, this created a scarcity in the number of rooms available to them, and therefore a lot of students were having to even wait for months and months to find accommodation, or even used to sleep on the couches of their friends' accommodations, which was really unfortunate. What was even more upsetting was that students had to live in cities other than their university and travel all the way into their universities to study or work. For example, people who were studying in Manchester were living in Liverpool. People who were studying in London were living outside London, had to make the commute into London. And this used to take up a lot of time out of their academics, which was really unfortunate. So if you are a student who is planning to come into the UK in September 2024, the first thing you want to do is think about what are the suitable options out there for you, but also you want to know what are the other options available and how do you make a wise choice about it. So let's talk about the different types of accommodations that are available to you. So as a rule of thumb, there are 4 different types of accommodations that are available to each and every student in the UK. The first one and the easiest one is trying to live with your own family or with friends. Now, if you are somebody who knows a family or a family friend within the area of the university that you're planning to attend, then it's a no-brainer. Definitely go for that, because it's not only going to save you cost, but you will also be within a sort of comfort zone, which might obviously provide you with some emotional and mental support that you would need during your tough year at university. The second option is halls of residence. Now, halls of residence are university accommodations that are being let out to students. They can be within the university campus alone or at a certain distance away from the university. But remember, these are again run by the university themselves. The third accommodation type is the private halls of residence that are available for students. Now, these are student accommodations, but they are owned by larger companies and are being let out as student accommodations to several groups of students all over the year. And the fourth type of accommodation is private house or flat accommodation. This is where you as an individual could be renting out a specific room in a house or an apartment, or you could be a part of a group of students who rent out an entire flat or an entire house for yourselves. So now that you know all the types of accommodations that are available, how do you make a choice about what accommodation is right for you? The first thing that you want to worry about in terms of criteria is thinking about costs. So while speaking about cost, the first thing for you to consider is how much money are you willing to spend. Now, depending upon the area of your university and how much budget you really have, the cost for accommodation can be really expensive but can also be really affordable. To give you a quick example, when I was a student 3 years ago, my cost of accommodation within London, and that was around zone 3 or 4, was about £380, whereas some of my friends were paying nearly £1,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment in zone 2 or 1. Now, as you can see, the cost for it was widely different. And again, I am going to agree to the fact that the accommodation that I found was in a special time during COVID. So it could have been really cheaper as compared to some of my other friends who found their accommodation slightly before it. Now, if you consider accommodation for students, you need to remember that obviously an entire year of education is supposed to be 52 weeks. However, students do not tend to be in academics for 52 weeks. The contracts that you have for student accommodation are typically for around 40 weeks. And if you are wise and are able to make a good decision, you might be able to find accommodation for as less as £90 per week. And even if you take at an average cost of £100 per week, that would mean spending £4,000 for the entire duration of those 40 weeks. Now, the first thing that you want to consider is, can this amount of money be deducted from anything that you already have? For example, if you are coming to the UK on a scholarship, does the university provide you certain amount of funds to allocate towards your housing expenses? And this could be through university halls. The second option for you to consider is through student loan. Remember that if you are taking a student loan, you also need to consider your expenses of daily living in the UK and make a provision for those funds to be allocated directly from your student loan so that you are not being stressed or fussed around in the end. Now, in terms of finding accommodation, like I said, you could find something for really cheap, like £100 per week, and Amber Students offers you some great options to consider. As you can see right here, there are several options that are available based on the university and the location where you choose to be and the cities. But the cheapest accommodations over here, as you can see, start right from 85 to £90 and can go all the way to as expensive as you would like them to be. So if you are confused about where you can start your journey to look out for accommodation, I would definitely try checking out Amber Students, and I'll leave the link for them in the description below, so don't forget to check them out. Second factor for you to consider is the location. Now, in terms of location, what you want to try and do is obviously be as close to the university as possible, preferably within walking distance, because that's going to save you loads of cost on transport. However, if that is not possible, you would realize, as I'm sure you would during your search process, that if you choose an accommodation further away from universities, then the cost for it is going to be comparatively cheaper as compared to the options that are available closer to universities. However, that is a catch, because if the accommodation is further away from the university, you're going to have to spend a higher cost on transportation, which might actually add up to be higher than the rent you would be paying. So keep this in mind when you make those choices. Now, if you are somebody who's considering to live away from your university, please consider two things. The first thing is that the neighborhood is safe. Now, obviously, because these accommodations can be further away from the city limits, it might be slightly unsafe. So do your research well before you consider it. The second thing you want to definitely think about is the commute safe? Now, the reason being is because when you are in university, you might be involved in group projects. You might need to stay in the library for slightly longer hours to complete your dissertation or your assignments. And that travel back home, especially during the night hours, might not be safe for you. So do make sure you've considered these factors before you book an accommodation in the UK. The third thing for you to consider is facilities. Now, in terms of facilities, some accommodation would be able to offer you laundry services, cooked meals, but also a own private bathroom, which obviously can be really important for some students because students would like their privacy. But if you don't mind that, you can choose to live in a shared accommodation, which will help to bring down the overall cost. For example, you might need to cook home cooked meals, but it might also mean that you need to share a bathroom and common living spaces with others, which might not be a problem for many of y'all. Now, let's talk about how you can actually book an accommodation. So if you are looking for university accommodation, just remember that some of these accommodations, the bookings go on first come, first serve basis. So you need to be really quick and on your feet when you are looking for student accommodation. Now, firstly, in terms of getting accommodation with the universities, these go out as soon as you start getting those acceptance letters. So make sure that you're checking the website continuously and booking those accommodations as they come along. Also make sure that you're applying for those accommodations well before the deadline, because some of the deadline for applying for student accommodation is well before the starting date of the course. So make sure you've completed those application forms and submitted them on the websites. The second option for you is in terms of finding private student accommodation. Now again, like I've said before, Amber Students is really great in terms of helping you find accommodation. If you just go in the description below and try the link over there, it will take you directly on that website. And on the website, you can put in the location of where you would like to find your university accommodation, and it will throw you so many options, and you can pick and choose what you would like based on your budget, but also based on the facilities that you would like in your student accommodation. Also, another thing to consider with Amber is that they have one-to-one assistance throughout the process and also provide you with a price match guarantee, which says that obviously if you find accommodation for lower price, they are willing to price match it. The other thing you are definitely assured is 24/7 guidance. They sort of guide you throughout the entire process from the time you have booked the accommodation with them all the way to when you are present there and initiated into that student accommodation, which I think is a fantastic feature that you should definitely avail of. Another brilliant feature about Amber is they have a one-click booking system. So once you are able to book with them, they reserve the spot for you and will help you to book that accommodation in a very quick process. The best thing even is that they allow you to have your families with you. So it doesn't matter whether you're coming as a single applicant or as a family, because you have that option of then choosing a better accommodation with them. So definitely do check them out, and I'll leave the link for them again in the description below. The third place to find accommodation is through private websites. Now, these are obviously many websites out there, such as Spare Room, Zoopla, Rightmove, even things like Gumtree, Facebook Marketplace. But I would recommend that definitely check out Rightmove, Zoopla, or Spare Rooms, especially if you are coming by yourself and would like a room in a shared accommodation, or if you have groups of friends with you who are coming and you can book maybe an apartment or maybe a house where each of y'all could have a room or split it up evenly. Now, the reason why I say avoid Facebook Marketplace and Gumtree is because there are a lot of scams in terms of accommodation and you really want to venture away from there. Another great website for you to check out is Open Rent, where you can directly talk to the landlord and negotiate with them. However, please remember that as an international student coming to the UK, because you do not have a credit history and you do not have any sort of previous history of living in the UK, what you might need is a UK guarantor. And this is something that many landlords might request for. And one way to tackle this is by offering a higher security deposit. But I also understand that this might not be an option for many of you guys out there. But please keep this in mind when you're making your choices for student accommodation. If all of this has not worked out for you, as a final one-stop resort, I would say definitely reach out to your university accommodation office, because they will be able to share university accommodation guides with you, also maybe conduct some virtual tours and give you some guidance on where you can find accommodation within reasonable distance and budget. That's it from today's video, guys. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below, and don't forget to check out the links for it. Take care. Bye.